Review the straw case for a second. One quick review. So what's the case again? Hey guys, look. You have the case of the small the straw it's the right length but the wrong diameter, right? So that's the machlokas about whether or not it's mutter to do, whether there was a gzera or not. There's one shita holds that we're concerned about that he might modify it, and the other shita holds that we're not concerned about he's going to. There's no gzera. We're not concerned he's going to modify it. So what do you say about that? What's the machlokas? Right, exactly. No one's saying that modifying this per se is a problem. Just that modifying this will lead you to cut this. This is I agree. This is the answer. So what's machlokas then?
If it's a gzeira or not.
One thing in mind. Remember, everyone holds. You said the right point. Everybody holds that modifying is not a problem in and of itself. Expand, make it something that's malleable. You're not being mosif, right? It's malleable. You're just forming it to fit the whole perfectly, right? So that action is not a problem. The only question is, if I'm allowed to do that, will I now go ahead and, if I saw this, cut this?
Right. So you want to know why it would lead to?
That's what you're saying. In other words, in my framework, when I'm expanding the kli, that ma'isa is mutter, but in my framework, what I'm saying is that the same way,
just as functional.
This doesn't work right now well. So what am I going to do? I'm going to expand it. But once I think that I can start being misaking things like that, what's going to stop me from cutting it also? That doesn't work. This doesn't work. They're both, in my framework, they're not functioning to what I want it to function as.
Right. And
whereas what's the other side going to say? Assuming length is an important issue, obviously what happens the moment I cut this? According to the other way of learning.
Now you're ready to widen.
Now it functions better.
It now functions.
It now functions.
Question. Is that drawn on scale?
No. So now
it's supposed to be, its width is good, that's what it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point it functions. So objectively speaking, you can't say it's not functioning as a spigot for the wine barrel. Now the only question is that, okay, well I want to modify it to make sure the fit is perfect. But at this point it already has a shame kli. You understand? So once I'm saying that it's once a shame kli emerges, whatever I do to it, if I'm modifying it, you can't modify a shame kli. Once it obtains a shame kli, that it is the kli. Modifying is not changing anything in it.
That's not what you make a gzeira though. Maybe you'll do the other thing.
Machokas is like this. Machokas is, do we look at this? Do we look at the cutting here? Okay. Do we say that now it acquires an objective shame kli? So if it acquires an objective shame kli, modifying something, a shame kli will never lead me to actually doing this, because I will never think. I'm not saying the average Jew. I'm saying I would never think to myself, I can distinguish between modifying and creating a shame kli. Okay. The other side's going to say that no. Once I'm engaged in tikkun, this is all tikkun. Once I'm doing tikkun, so in my framework, I want this to function well. It's not functioning well.
But if girth is just as necessary.
He's saying like this. He's saying that at least by the length, you're actually doing a qualitative change in the thing. You took one entity and making it two, for example, right? But what are you doing here? Here, you're not actually changing the properties of the kli itself.
You're right. I mean, it only works.
Let's get the steerer down here. So now you got a big problem. Big problem. This whole sugya. All right, and the big problem is based on the Mishnah and Eruvin Lamadal Lamabez. Okay. And what does the Mishnah there say?
Again.
Why not? Okay. Because you said again every day now. Okay. The Mishnah says what? Nasnu Lamadal Laviz. So if you look at the side, there's that Girsas Yerushalmi and the Rif and the Rush, which makes more sense. V'nal b'fanav. So what happened? You put the eruv inside the cabinet and you locked it. So what's the situation here with the eruv?
You can't get inside.
No. Okay, but just to make sure we have all the facts down.
Accessibility to the food is crucial
right.
To make.
Exactly. In other words, you have to be able to. In order for an eruv to exist as an eruv chatzeros, accessibility must be available to everybody. Right. Now, what happened in this case? I stuck it in this cabinet. All right, a brick cabinet. But I stuck it in the cabinet. I locked the door and I lost the key. Okay. Now what? So the Mishnah says. Hareza Eruv. Okay, fine. So far, so good? It's an Eruv. Okay, so the Gemara says, V'mai. Right, who? Right, so I have a problem because I'm here and the Eruv's there, meaning I can't get to the Eruv, so how's it a functional Eruv? So the Gemara says, no, Rav Shmuel. So what case is it? Now comes the tricky part. So what case is it? What's the case? What?
A brick cabinet.
Well, they're both brick cabinets, but it's a brick cabinet that's actually sealed. Okay? So everyone agrees that if it's a brick cabinet that's sealed, right, that it would be a problem. That's what you have to deduce from this. A sealed kli made out of bricks right? Well, again, let's just use all the facts. The migdal was large. A large sealed brick strong container, right? You would not be able to break open on Shabbos. But that's a big problem because a chavis can also be defined as a large, strong container. So why would it be that by shover chavis it's mutter, but this case is aser? And that's exactly what Tosfos' question is. Okay, clear? That's the issue. Tosfos. Kufman Vav Aleph. Tosfos Kufman Vav Aleph shover adam as a chavis. Go.
Mukila, the drosis.
The drusos. What's drusos?
Crushed pulper.
No, it's like they took the figs and they jammed them together. Okay, fig cake, I think, or whatever. All right, the Rebbe Nechemia. Aval Rabbanan.
During Nechemia Shari, filu mif.
Okay, that's a separate point. Okay, it's just a question of is there a difference in the case if the figs are spread out in the kli or if they're.
And just do it all to divine.
Well, next.
Okay, but Tim Rebbe, we had the Tanan prepared to come Eruvin. Gabi Erev Nitznim Midmidal, the new Obekanaf, the Ovet Maftach.
Mafteach.
Where is it Erev? The Parak we run, a Mayu B'Gemak Ma'acher, very B'Gemak Echad B'Gemak Ma'acher.
Who?
Right? Isn't this different place in person? Rishlem Rabbi Shmuel, the Amri Tervayu, Hakal B'Migdal Shal Benyan.
Askinan. Okay. Rameru. That last line, Rameru, is so critical. Okay. Zvamai. A little inflection there. Come on. That's yes. That's great. All right, go on.
Okay, lost that.
In other words, V'amai b'ayleilu ukma hachi. Right? Why is the Gemara even going down this road? Umi karanami Mike Amar. Right? V'halo yachol l'shaber v'toachas abmigdal. V'litol se'eruv. Right? Ki hechi da'achas shari l'shaber chavis v'litol agrogris. Right? So he says, it's beautiful. He says, how is it possible that in the case in Eruvin, it's aser, right? When in reality, he should be able to break it open like he breaks open the barrel, right? Simple. I mean, simple stira. Makes no sense. Okay? Yes. All right. So what's Tosfos say? So what's the answer? How do you answer the stira? Oh, then he says one more point. Venira. I'm sorry.
I think Yaakov wanted to translate what he read. Was the point.
So what? Keep going.
Netilas Erev, Netilas Sekrogeres. Imkein Kasha, Imkein Kasha. Hechi Mukila,
Hasam.
Okay, sorry. Kurimeir, Venir.
Stop. So what's he saying?
It's a good question.
No, so he's saying if you want, maybe you'll tell me that there's a difference between Eruv and Grogers, right? Figs and food for Eruv could be different. The problem is that Rav Meir is the one who's like both, because Stamas isn't Rav Meir. Right, so Tosfos, that's a little bit of a push. Tosfos is saying that you have to consider, you can't take into account the fact that two different cases. The fact that it's Rav Meir means it's the same case. Okay, so we don't care about the fact that one's Erev and one's Grogeros. At the end of the day, it's accessibility to the clay, to the inside of the clay. Okay, so now comes the answer. Venira.
Near the Hasan, Asher L'Shavar is a Migdal. V'Hapcha Deshari L'Shavar is a Chabis. Mishum Demayri Demit.
Bimustaki. Okay, so that's the key thing. So the case there is not mustaki in Eruvin, and our case here is mustaki, right?
Right.
Clear?
Yeah.
What's mustaki? So then he goes into the Gemara and Beitza, using Rashi as his raya. Kedemuki la bebeitza.
Perikamavi Kade Yayin.
Kade yayin. Right, and Mefarish Rashi.
Mefarish Rashi Hasan Dahaini Chaves Shibura.
Shvura.
Lakin Vire.
Shvareya.
Shvareya. Saraf. Shal H. Osa Limanu Zefes.
Okay.
Akoran Brishna.
Okay. Umishamachi.
Mishamachi Davka Chaves Shari.
Here's a key line. Demachmas.
Priusa.
Lo chayes alea. What does that mean?
Doesn't care about it.
Because of its what? It's in. No, let's say I had a barrel and it broke apart into little shards. And what did I do? It's funny because the fact that I glued it together would indicate I would want to keep it. But anyway, I had like this flimsy kli that I reassembled, right? So Tosfos is saying, since it's of such a low quality, right? He's not going to be worried about it. The leka lemechash. Right, and therefore we're not concerned he's trying to make a kli out of it. Now, one second, what does Tosfos mean by that? What Tosfos is making is that when it comes to a flimsy structure kli, in that situation, we can start playing around with what his kavana is, right? But you can't say that by a sturdy kli, a non-mustaki kli. If it's non-mustaki, we say by definition, his action is one to create the kli. Okay? Period. Just review. What's Tosfos? What are the facts in Tosfos? So Tosfos says what? Let's just make sure we get this down. Tosfos says, right? Tosfos. Right? Regular is aser. Mustaki is, well, can be mutter. Can be mutter. Okay? Now, what does the Ran say? So the Ran on Samach Al says what? He says, Q. The Ran. Right, now, let's skip to the underlying part, because the first part deals with the machlokas and makalka. Okay, so we have a big problem. So the Ran wants to say that, what's the difference? The difference seems kind of arbitrary. If it's a kli katan, then you can question whether it's mutter or not to open it up. But if it's a kli gadol, what do we say about kli gadol? It's a problem, right? Which you guys were saying correctly, that seems arbitrary, right? So what's machlokas? Point. In other words, you're right. There is something about the nature of usage when it comes to. Now let's use modern day cases. A potato chip bag, right? With the material potato chip bag versus, let's say, what do you call it? A glass Snapple bottle. Okay, there's certainly something about what each one's made out of.
Even though the same size.
Even though the same size.
Can you
According to Tosfos, the problems in the structure of the kli. Okay. That's going to be the issue insofar as define the kli as a shem kli is going to be insofar as the structure is concerned. But let's be careful. Let's be careful here, though. If I have a potato chip, I'm using a potato chip bag because I think that's very simple to realize why it's mustaki, right? But you'd agree that beforehand it's functioning to hold the things that are inside it.
That's because whoever originally did it clearly made it.
Okay. Right,
but insofar, but kli works insofar as my relation to it.
Well, okay, right. Which takes place when?
As soon as I touch it.
When I decide to open it, I think it says the Baal Batim. It also took a long time to understand this. I'm like, the kli on the shelf. The halakha doesn't care about the kli on the shelf. Okay, the kli on the shelf is not a kli. What?
It's my relationship.
Right. Exactly. It's when I bring Shabbos into the picture. When does that happen? When I want to now get to the stuff inside. So now we have to evaluate the kli. There's no question that the moment I take that kli, I'm not being hyperbolic here, but into my hand, right? That kli is storing the potato chips, right? But what does Mustaki tell us?
Mustaki tells us that
now's the time to die. So let's say a guy opened it up in a what do you call it? In a
jacket.
No, let's say a guy opened it up and dumped everything out.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone would agree what?
Clearly not a problem. So
okay. And let's say a guy opens up in it. Now it's interesting. Let's say a guy opens up in a jagged way. What's it clear? What does he have to do? What's he doing by opening up in a jagged way?
Showing that he does not want to reuse this.
Right. In other words, like this. In other words, it's not that the structure of the kli tells you that by definition it's not reusable. You can't say that. Right? You can't say it's in the property of the kli itself. It's not reusable. Well, what you have to do is you have to do an action that does what? That tells you that this will never be used for storage. In other words, you got to remove the property of you and your framework have to do an action that removes any property of storage from this kli.
Right now it's neutral.
Right, exactly. That's the trick by Mustaki. All Mustaki is doing is it's telling you that it's certainly it's not sturdy, right? Which means that right now we don't know. We don't know what it is. Doesn't mean it's automatically mutter. We don't know. But your action of shover chavis tells me what? That I'm indicating I don't want this for storage. I'm removing, in my framework, I'm negating the property of storage from this thing.
By dumping chips out?
Right, the structure. If it's a good structure, so that means in the structure of the kli itself is the property of storage. And the only way to do that is to destroy the actual kli itself. But according to Tosfos and Mustaki means that it's true right now, it's functioning. I come into contact with it. If I have a big cabinet, okay, or the cabinet can, or I have a sealed barrel, okay, I have a sealed can. The moment I come into contact with that can, meaning the can is sturdy, it's not Mustaki, it's sturdy, that can, the moment I come into contact with it and I want to open it, by definition, it's making it functional. It's a storage kli.
You want to or have?
It's irrelevant. It is a the moment touching is fine. It's not muksa.
Right.
right? But when I make a hole in it, what is it by definition? It making it into its functioning now as a storage clay. But it existed there in potential all along. Because you have to answer the stira. Because you have to answer the stira in the Gemara. So it's Tosa saying that the structure of the material, right, gives you an indication of what its function is. There is something you can deduce from the structure of the material. If it's sturdy, then in potential exists the idea of storage. It's built into its very property. But if it's flimsy, you would never say a flimsy bag is really meant to store things. But what do we mean meant to store things? Meaning from when I open it. In other words, when I access the stuff inside, at that moment in time, it's clear this thing's not meant to be stored. In other words, the idea of it not being meant to store things is expressed when I open up the bag. Because I could have a potato chip bag sitting on my shelf for years.
You open it, throw it out.
It is a vessel, right? But shame kli will emerge based on my maisa.
Okay, so,
Right, exactly, right.
So what happens when I say I have duct tape?
I'm saying no. The issue between the two kilim is an issue of function. Now here's the tricky part. Now, what's the difference between kli gadol and kli katan? This you have to be a little innovative. Right? Because it sounds like kind of arbitrary. Well, what?
Oh, because I guess
You have to categorize it. By the way, you have the right to argue on this.
I'm not arguing.
I think it's at the end of the function, right? But what's the difference between? But what? You're right. So okay, it's nice. It's cute to say that katan fits in the gadol. But what do you mean by that? It shows you one thing. I'm just saying. I think you can go a little further than that.
in comparison to the gadol, its function is limited.
Which function is limited?
The kli katan.
Right. So okay. So I would say like this. I'd say that. So I would say that by kli. No, but I'd say this. Kli gadol. I can't. Again, I'm just saying what I think kli gadol means here. Kli gadol means that it's again because I know you can ask questions. Just relax. But I'm saying by kli gadol, like the case of the migdal. That case of the migdal. It's not that the migdal is made to store food, right? That's not its primary function. Kli gadol means that there's the size of it tells you one thing. It's got multi functions, right? It's a multifunctional thing. Whereas the kli katan, in other words, since the kli katan is only there to store the grogeris, and the Ran backs it up, there are these things were made specifically for this type of food. So since it's there to mates only for that thing, right? That in other words, its primary thing is a food storing kli. That's why it's what do you call it? Maka patish. The whole question would apply to it or not. In other words, like this. In other words, binyan stira only applies to a multifunctional kli, right? Not to something that's not because that's the thing. You're limiting the function of the kli. If the kli is only there to store food, if that's its primary function, meaning it's all it does, right? Then he would say the makah patish would apply. But if it's a kli that has, that's a good question. Question is, what is it? It's definitely a functional issue. That's for sure. There's the issue between kli gadol and kli katan is functional. Now the question is, well, what makes the function of the kli gadol different than kli katan? Why does size make a difference? So what would you say? What does size make a difference?
Okay, well, do more stuff.
Do more things, right? Meaning that it's not limited to just simply X, but it could do X, Y, Z. That's a good. Hold on, that's a good question. But I'm just saying. I'm just trying to understand. First step. What's the differentiation? Because that's the hardest step here. The hardest step is what is the differentiation. So what I'm just positing for now. I'll put this up tomorrow. What I'm positing for now is that according to the Ran, the differentiation exists in the function of the kli, which would mean that what makes a bigger kli different than a smaller one? The small one is limited to one thing, food storing. The bigger one is many functions, right? And food storing is a secondary function. It's not.
I guess maybe the
off of this. Okay, that's nice, but what is that? What's that idea? It still sounds arbitrary, right?
Hold on.
Sounds like the Ran just drawing the line.